Okay, everyone, welcome back. This was a donated request from I'm trying to see. We're there, 116. I'll end it there, and then we can get into his favorite presidency and just finish it off. That way it's separate from the presidents. So, Andrew Johnson is about to be the talk of the town. By the way, for Lincoln's second inaugural. I think... Oh, I want to say Hannibal. Someone named Hannibal was Lincoln's first vice president. Not the comedian Hannibal Buress. Not him. But the second vice president was Andrew Johnson. And he was drunk as hell. Video.
Yeah.
It was fucking Hamilton.
And then they shot him and he was like, thank God.
This place sucks.
Christ, this shit sucks so bad. So that brings us to Johnson.
So
Who,
Johnson was
great.
the first guy to be impeached.
Was
What?
he impeached? Oh yeah,
First guy to be impeached, yeah.
Johnson shows up. This is great. He was like a
One vote away from actually being removed.
tough guy. He was supposed to be the counteraction to
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Well, he's one of the reasons the war was prolonged because everybody knew if we could just get rid of Lincoln. Johnson was behind him with there was a deal to be made. It was like don't talk outside the family. He was like Sonny liked my deal, didn't he? Sonny was hot for my deal.
Yeah.
Johnson would have fucking settled in a minute.
Johnson started his life as an indentured servant
No shit.
and worked his way up. How
know
sick
that.
is that?
That's impressive.
And then before his inauguration, he got fucked up on whiskey and just couldn't talk. His inauguration, it was in the rain and the mud right after Lincoln got shot. And
he
everyone
was
was
the
like,
first one. He's the one who proved you can impeach a president, but you cannot get the fucking votes. It's a waste of time, and he ends up stronger.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest move in the world. It's vanity.
Yeah.
It's just Congress hates the president. It's just bullshit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't accomplish anything. They I don't remember why they went after him. Whatever. He was
Me
very
neither.
corrupt. He's a fucked up guy. I don't. Who knows? It's all shit that I heard because of them.
They hated him so much that the Congress instituted a basically you can't fire someone from the cabinet if they have like X amount of time. It didn't make sense, but they were just doing everything they could because they knew that he was going to fire Edwin Stanton because Edwin Stanton and him did not get along. He fired him, ended up getting impeached, did not get removed. Ulysses S. Grant, I hate to be the spoiler to anyone who looked down at the Ulysses S. Grant. Yes, he's the president. Ulysses S. Grant nominates him for Supreme Court. I don't remember if it was a Chief Justice job or not. He accepted, but Edwin Stanton eventually died. I want to say had something with bronchitis or something. He was a sick guy. But he died before he could take the office. That was kind of a dream job for him, but this has nothing to do with Andrew Johnson. I was just bringing up why he was impeached. And I don't remember exactly the law behind it, the reasoning.
But they impeached him and then failed to get rid of him.
Really?
I know nothing else about him. But
I don't know either.
But then fucking
Grant.
amazing guy.
Great guy, amazing guy. I feel like his presidency was a bit of a fucking letdown for how cool he was.
I mean, he did so Christing much, this guy.
Oh, true.
No, it's the lost cause myth has really damaged his reputation. But he went after the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, eliminated them. They didn't have a resurgence until, unfortunately, around the 28th president, Woodrow Wilson, who was a Southern guy from Virginia, grew up during the Civil War, had slaves when he was in his family as a boy, and he was a racist. Woodrow Wilson, not Grant. Yeah, Grant did a lot. But he gets the label of being a drunk. He wasn't a drunk. He was somebody who couldn't hold his liquor. He couldn't, like, this is a soda, but I don't need any more soda. I'm good. Like, that was him. You're like, really? Already? Okay.
To help the South, he was pretty good.
What do you do?
Well, and he was. First of all, some people get on him because he owned one slave.
Oh, man.
Because his father-in-law, his wife's father,
Yes.
hated him because he was an abolitionist. I mean, he wasn't like an active abolitionist.
Sure.
But he was against just for not having a slave.
Yeah.
Back then, if you didn't have a slave, you were a dick to certain
Yeah.
people. So
You were like, put on a mask.
Yeah.
You were that guy. You were like, why
Yeah,
do you have
exactly.
slaves?
yeah,
And they're like, why is this guy making me feel uncomfortable?
yeah. So he hated him because he had slaves and he didn't want one. So he gave him one as a wedding present, like to spite him.
What a dick.
Yeah. So
Jesus.
so Grant made the guy his partner, and
Yeah.
they started a little business together, which he then freed the guy and gave him the business.
That's incorrect. He got a slave through the marriage, and he used that slave in partnership to build a home, which I think he called it hard scrabble. The wife hated it. She hated that living because she came from, the father had slaves, had a farm, stuff like that. And Julia Grant, and that was the wife, and he met Julia through the brother because he went to West Point with him. And so she had this life that she was accustomed to. Grant was not. He grew up a farmer, poor farmer. But yeah, Grant used the slave to build his own home. Then took the slave down to the courthouse or whatever and said that he wanted to give him his freedom. They tried to tell him, you need money, you need this, that, sell him. And he was like, no. And he just gave him his freedom. And the guy was just like, I thank you. And Grant's like, no problem, have a good life. And that was it.
Yeah. He
made
would
that
go.
guy.
Don't quote me on, hey, have a good life. He might have said it differently, but it was pretty much the same thing.
He would go
Life.
work with the slaves.
But
He'd be out there with them working.
Yeah,
and then while he was like financially ruined,
Yeah.
he freed his slaves instead of selling them.
But he had one though?
I'm not sure. He might have had one at that
Just the one.
That's
point.
the story I just told you.
Yeah.
Is, I think his slave story. I don't think
Yeah.
he had a bunch of them.
He had one slave and he freed him instead of selling him.
But his
And
father-in-law.
he gave him a business that
Yeah.
he had started with him.
It was
I don't think he gave him a business, but I could be wrong. But Grant's father was hardcore abolitionist. They were in Kentucky. Slaves they were in Ohio, and then maybe they went to Did they go from Kentucky to Ohio, and then that's where Grant was born? And that was my stomach, sorry. And there were slaves in Kentucky, and so they moved up to Ohio where it was no slaves, something like that.
father-in-law history fucked him. He was like, yeah.
That's right.
Here's
Yeah.
slaves.
That's right.
Here's slaves.
And then he was in
He
the
did,
army.
absolutely.
He was in the army, and he went. One of his first jobs was outpost near San Francisco. It was in the middle of nowhere. There was no. I mean, it was in the desert of California.
Mm.
He was the only one there, and he was a family man. He loved his family.
He missed his bed.
Missed his family so much, and he started just getting drunk. And somebody came to drop the mail and found him passed out drunk. and that was his only experience with alcohol. He was a very rigidly living guy, and he was known as a drunk for the rest of his life.
Really?
There's
Every
arguments.
time he had a political problem, they'd go, he's drinking.
There's arguments. There's rumors he was fucked up at Shiloh.
Because
was
he
probably
sat
why.
because he sat under a tree in the rain. They found him sitting under a tree in the rain outside of a military hospital.
It also is funny because Shiloh, he woke up on day 2 of it.
Yeah.
At like the start of day 2. Or maybe it was the start of day 1 when it started. He was late to get there.
Started day 1.
So everybody was like, he was hammered. But
What?
if he was hammered, that's very funny. To be like, oh.
So the Confederates attacked the Union in Shiloh in the morning. He was at a home across the river. I want to say maybe like 10 miles away, but he was on a boat ride, on a boat thing, so he could come down. It probably wasn't 10 miles, but he could hear the opening shots, so he took off and came down. He wasn't drunk. He was being, hosted as they did back in those days.
Oh, shit, there's a war. Like,
So
wake it
after
up
he
like,
was
they're here.
he had won the Civil War. Started really Reconstruction, he was in earnest wanting to get opportunities and equity for black people, equal opportunity for black people. And then he retired and was in New York. He became a New Yorker. He became a big part of this city.
Yeah.
And he had a son named Kermit, who I think his name was Kermit. Who that was the 1800s.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Kermit invested
What a fucking great name.
invested his money and all of his father's money with some asshole guy who took it and just left town and just took all of their money, every penny that they had.
Guy had a Ponzi scheme. Took it all.
And so Grant went to visit Vanderbilt, who's outside of the Grand Central Station. There's a great statue of him. I think it was Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Went to the richest man in New York City, who was a hard ass, a guy who didn't care for charity or anything. But he brought what's his name? The sword that was Lee.
Well,
He had Robert E. Lee's sword that he surrendered to him. He had his Congressional Medal of Honor and the Bible that he took the oath of office in, and he gave them. He said, "I want to sell these to you because I have no money." And Vanderbilt said, "Jesus Christ, Mr. President,
holy shit.
we're not doing that." He said, I'm going to donate these to the national museums, and I'll give you he bought them for the nation.
Did he buy his biography? Isn't that what he?
No,
why
so
he
here's
wrote
what
it?
happened with the biography. It's the best part of his story, and it's actually his greatest legacy. But his autobiography is like the greatest ever written.
Yeah.
So he met two guys on a train. He'd do anything for money at this point. His wife was very young. He was broke
two guys
after
on a
everything
train.
he'd been through. He was broke, and his wife was young, and he was going to leave her destitute. So he met two guys on a train. They're like, "Why don't you write your autobiography? We'll pay you $1,000." And he was like, "Done."
What?
Oh,
So then,
So it wasn't quite the autobiography. What they wanted him to do was write about battles in the war. Shh. Sorry. They wanted him, I almost said they wanted his stomach. They wanted him to write about battles in the war and stuff like that. So they were going to pay him like $1,000. But they were going to pay him like $25 per article. And so he had to write X amount of them to get it. Now it wasn't $25 and it wasn't $1,000, but it was like maybe $250. They were going to pay him to write these, and then they were going to publish them.
and about a week later, he meets up with Mark Twain, was like his best friend, and Mark Twain said, "Why don't you write your autobiography, your memoirs?" And he said, "I'm doing that for these guys." And he goes, "What are they paying you?" And he goes, $1,000. And he's like, "Dude, what is wrong with you?" And he says, "Give me the book. I'll publish." Because Mark Twain had started his own publishing company because he hated publishers. He said, "I'll publish it and I'll help you write it." And he said, I promised those two guys. He's like, did you sign something? He goes, no, but I did. I gave my word.
And that was big to him. You know, he gave his word. That's what he wanted. Mark Twain was on the business aspect of it. A handshake doesn't mean crap in this business.
So Twain, or his real name, what's his
Clemens.
Clemens.
Is it Samuel Clemens? He got his name Twain. So I could be wrong on this, but I'm going to go with it and we'll pretend it's right. Twain was a... Damn it. No, I'm not going to shoot from the hip. I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to look it up. I know you're saying, well, I don't give a damn about Mark Twain. Does that have anything to do? So I think I paused it when I said people are going to say they don't give a damn about it. But I do. So that's what I meant to say. Sorry, I might have cut you off. Okay. His name is Samuel Longhorn Clemens, known as Mark Twain. He adopted the pen name in early 1863. He was a newspaperman in Nevada, and it referred to his steamboating days when the measure of the depth of the water was expressed with the crewman's cry, Mark Twain, meaning 2 fathoms or 12 feet. There you go. I mean, it's all about facts and interesting things.
Travels to, I think he went to see Sherman. He went to see, he's like, I need to see somebody who he'll listen to. So he went to visit Sherman and said, please get him to do this. So Sherman wrote a telegram to Grant saying, for the love of God, give the book to Clemens. That's what the thing.
That's awesome.
So he wrote his autobiography, and the remarkable thing about it that I read was that there's like no adjectives in it. It's like all verbs and nouns. The entire book is verbs and nouns because he just says what happened. It's a very well written book, and so Clemens turned it into this special edition that you had to order one. You could get any color you wanted. And it was the first blockbuster book in American history. It made like $500,000 in the first month. Meanwhile, he had a goiter that was growing and growing.
Stogies. You always see him with the stogies.
Yeah.
Died of throat cancer like right as he finished the book.
Whoa.
And then
If you ever see pictures of Grant on a porch with a scarf around his neck, he's hiding the cancerous he went to eat a peach and he swallowed, and he said it felt like it was burning, and that was how they realized he had throat cancer, and it's from all the excess smoking of cigars. He finished his book on like a Tuesday and he died on a Friday. Like, don't take my word for the day he finished the death, but it was literally that fast. And they said, Mark Twain said, he gave everything that he had to drive on to finish that book. And once he knew it was finished and it was out of his hands and it was going to be taken care of, he passed on. And Mark Twain told him, you take my word for it, I will make sure your family gets the money. And the split was something crazy. It was like 70-30 at first. It went down to 50-50. Julia Grant, she spent the rest of her life taken care of. And Mark Twain did exactly as he said he would. Mark Twain also tells a really good story at a banquet with Grant. And he said, Mark Twain's from Missouri, Hannibal, Missouri. And he says, Ulysses S. Grant and I both fought in the Civil War. Mark Twain fought for the Confederacy. Grant fought for the Union. He said that we both fought in the Civil War. The difference was Grant charged forward and I ran away. And I always thought that was funny.
wife was made for life. Her first check from Twain was like $400,000.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think wasn't he buried here? And this monument.
And he's buried in Grant's tomb in Harlem. And when he died, there was this huge funeral, and it was Northern and Southern soldiers. Southern soldiers were allowed to put back on their Southern uniforms because it was a big thing that his casket was carried by North and South.
He's received letters on his porch, and he would read them. And he got letters from more Southern Confederate soldiers than he did more Union. And it's not that the Union hated him. He got a lot of Union stuff. But the Confederate soldiers and stuff that reached out to him, and they were like, look, we think you're a great man. You're a great leader. I surrendered at this battle, and you made sure that we weren't harmed. We were taken care of. We were, food, clothing, and all this. Like you were a good person towards us. And they were really saddened because now it's his 1880s. So it's 20 years removed from the Civil War. So you have some distance so you can look back on things. And a lot of them look back and they were just like, we appreciate everything that you did. We don't maybe not agree with it because we're on different sides, but we completely understand and we respect you immensely for, the way you treated us and the way you did things, and you tried to do reconstruction, so on and so forth.
It's too bad you can never get away with wearing a Confederate uniform in Harlem these days.
No,
because that would
Get
be a
away
treat.
with.
Yeah, but he was fucking awesome at when Lee surrendered. He was very like, it was unconditional surrender.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, you guys are gonna fucking give up, but he was like, keep your guns, go home, start rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could have fucking destroyed the South.
Yeah.
And he was very chill. I think Custer stole the fucking sword. He hated
Did he?
Custer. I think Custer stole Lee's sword.
Is
Maybe
that
he got
right?
it back, but I think the story was Grant wouldn't accept it, or something along
Wanted
those
him to
lines.
keep it?
And
Yeah, Custer was bloodthirsty guy.
And then on the parade back into Washington,
Yeah.
Grant was obviously out front. Custer fucking rode ahead, and Grant was like, "This motherfucker." Custer was the
With his
man.
blonde hair.
If you look into Custer, he was pretty fucking.
I
cool.
don't know much about him.
He fucked up Jeb Stuart at Gettysburg, which was pretty cool, because Jeb.
Custer was young, was talented, and did not listen to things. In Galena, Illinois, where I'm going to go to for Grant's home, I've already been there, but there's a painting, and on that painting, at Appomattox, when Lee surrendered, he was there. I've already forgot his name. I think I'm
Jeb
dying.
was the man.
Custer.
He rode in.
about him.
He was with the Michigan cavalry, and he was like, "Come on, you Wolverines!" and fucking led them into a charge. That's why they're the Michigan Wolverines. All that shit.
So then
It's
you
all
got Hayes, who undid all of this
Yeah.
cool stuff for black people.
It's all
and politically,
very.
he didn't want to deal with it, so he just did away with it. And then you got fucking who else? Then it goes I don't know.
Garfield.
Then I get Bleary.
Yeah, this is like the Gilded Age, is what it's called. It's all
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
But this is where shit, like, it goes from we ended slavery to now just right back into
It
just
was awful.
racism.
Really?
Not slavery, but just every law against them.
Subjugation, just
It
like
just-
it became the same obsession as before,
Yeah.
but without slavery. It just became all about not letting them vote, keeping them off the
And that goes all
ballot.
the way up until, like, now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we're
Till
just
yesterday.
2018.
We figured it out
we
yesterday.
figured it out yesterday. Thank God.
Yeah.
Finally,
During the day,
Arkansas.
we got a nice little nation.
Yeah. Louisiana cleaned up their act a little.
True.
And Alabama.
My favorite president, just jumping way the fuck
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, I'm going to end it there, and then we'll finish up with his favorite president, and then the goodbye part. There is a part 2, which I'm definitely going to be doing. So, we're going to stop this here, and we'll be back for the final wrap-up. There's a thanks button. You can donate to the channel. You can request things if you do. You can still request things if you don't donate. It just takes a little longer. Appreciate all donations. They do help. They go towards the channel. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to pull a single cent because I'm still going back and forth with YouTube on verifying who I am. So, and then on the super chats for the people who donate, YouTube takes 50% of it. It's really nice. All right. You can subscribe to the channel. That helps. Give a thumbs up. That definitely helps as well. And until the final part, which is 7, you have a good day and have a good night.